Hi guys, this is Katipo for HUSNG.com, and I'm playing an incredibly aggressive player at the 120s in Hyper Turbo, and that's actually why you're going to see me just call here. For the simple reason that this guy's been check raising like crazy. It's like 60%, so I'm going to be calling and just trying to apply him, but if he's betting this big, I don't know if I really want to. I do have some backdoor equity on the flop, and that's why the call. And he only raised 2.25x. But yeah, overall you'll see here raise versus c-bet is 52%, and you've got to use your position and not just give up every hand. And I think a lot of players are not doing that well enough. They're just basically saying like, oh, I have almost no equity, I have to fold. But no, if they're doing that so much, you don't have to fold. This is actually really close to a call, but no. Unfortunately, he does barrel a decent amount, and he's not c-betting that crazy, so can't have a lot of fun calling there with Queen 9 and then going crazy. But yeah, you can see he's just crazy aggressive, except on the button. On the button, he's just surprisingly tight. Only raises like 50%-ish and limps quite a bit, but with some trap hands in there for sure. But he doesn't fold to 3-bets almost at all. He's probably a recreational player. And the 4-bet is rather high too, so yeah, probably it's not the best idea to 3-bet bluff him a lot. And here's another situation where I'm just going to call because he's doing this so much. The donks, you don't really see it here, I guess, but I remember he's donking in other spots quite a lot. So I have no problem calling, and then I'll be betting the river if he doesn't. Anyway, yeah, he's just going crazy. 80% range out of the ones he calls, which is not even that tight, like 70% VPIP. Wow, I was sure I would win that. Yeah, he happened to have hand there, but multiple times he doesn't. And he just like randomly does it with whatever bluff he has. Yeah, so I don't know how many of these players you'll really find in your games because most people are just not that crazy. But yeah, it's always fun to play a super aggressive player, and it makes you think a lot more too, because the standard strategies are not built to exploit that very hard. So you would probably do alright, but you're not going to be getting an edge to the level that you can. And he delays c-bets every time, like literally every time so far. Probably like like 10 hands or something. So okay, that was a surprising twist. The only times I think he doesn't delay c-bet is if he has a weak pair, so I'm just going to bet. And if he check raises, I'm calling because he is just not normally going to be checking back those kinds of hands. He sort of overprotects, like if there are a bunch of draws and he knows that I can have multiple of those draws, he'll just sometimes bet over the pot or just very large with his value hands. Sometimes not even incredibly strong value hands, just like middle pairs, etc. So he seems to think I'm on a draw more than I think is reasonable, and that leads him to, and I guess he also thinks I'm calling crazy, but yeah, that leads him to make these really large overprotection bets. So I don't think he would be just checking back 2 times with a top pair there, even though some players definitely would be capable of doing that. So another strategy you can employ here is just simply not raising as much on the button and having a much tighter strategy for raising while just limping the rest of the hands. This guy's also pretty aggressive versus limps though, so I don't know if I'm really getting that much out of it. And I do like the potential to have the initiative. But I think I'm going to combine those strategies, so I will tighten up my range overall a little bit, and I will also be barreling more, or just, you know, not giving up very easily. Playing kind of like him, but more in position. It's hard for him to raise here. If he makes it like 140-ish or whatever, he's yeah, exactly. Like the raises he'll have are going to be very large, and that is automatically going to make it tougher for him to be bluffing. Just because, you know, you have to throw in your whole stack to do it. You can't just really 2x and fold very easily. And that's basically the point where I think I should have been limping more, like Jack 6 off. I think probably I'm better off limping. He's not folding, especially at this stack depth, surprisingly. Yeah, you can tell this aggression is just off the charts, both pre and post. Well, pre as in more like the 3-betting and folding a 4-bet and all that. So I could have definitely min-raise called this, but this is still one of the hands that doesn't induce well. So I'm just simply shoving it. And he made a slightly loose call, but it's fine. And he's probably gonna shove more than he calls. Yeah, so this is actually the latest Coffee Hut. It's 2.0.5 with the bug fix, and yeah, it's an incredibly useful tool. As you can see, like you have the dong stats, the delay c-bet stats, you have essentially every stat that is relevant within a normal sample size. Like, okay, if you have 1,000,000 hands, maybe you can have some stat for when somebody checks, bets the turn, and then checks the river or something like that. But those spots just don't come up often enough that you would build a reasonable sample size, so you would just be cluttering your screen with essentially useless stats that don't even necessarily reflect anything, even when they have a good sample size, because of how texture dependent they often can be. So you would need not even like 1,000 hands for those. You might need something like 10,000. So you might be comfortable with 1,000 hands and think like, oh, okay, I've got a good idea, but you'd just be misleading your own analysis there. You'd be assuming that sample size is correct based on how you know sample sizes are for other stats like fold to c-bet, etc., but in fact, it'd be entirely different. Here, I would like to check raise, but again, like he's not betting that much. His min raise is really tight. This is possibly even a fold. And he does this really weird stuff, but I mean, I'm priced in. And I could have raised or, you know, whatever, but I think if he has a pair, he's just calling, so I don't want to get too carried away. I feel like the one way you don't want to approach players that have fairly exploitable leaks is by... Wow, okay. So I had the best hand for the most part. So you don't want to approach these players by going and making plays without information when you already have clear information for some leaks. Like I've got a very clear information that he's not folding to c-bets and raising a crazy high amount. So I've already got some things to exploit, and I don't want to, without almost any information, just suddenly make other assumptions like, oh, whenever he bets small, he's weak or whatnot. But yeah, apparently he is weak a lot of times he does that. I've seen him do it before, and not very often do I find him have a real hand. And this is oh, okay, he's gonna take a break. Yeah, I was just gonna say this is one of the players that surprised actually gives pretty good action. Like he'll play you multiple times. He's not gonna play forever or anything, but it's not like the typical, oh, okay, I won one game, time to run. And I think, yeah, he's doing alright versus me. It's probably like pretty even for the most part. He probably ran pretty well in terms of card distribution, but it also just speaks to the fact that at first you're gonna have trouble versus a strategy this aggressive. You're not gonna expect to be running into somebody that's just shoving random air essentially on turns. Like I've seen him shove on a barely coordinated board just a random ace-4 off, and most people just don't do that. They play with equity, so they can catch you off guard at first. Especially if you're not hitting many hands and then just assuming that, okay, this guy seems to always have it. So because if you're not hitting many hands, you tend to be folding a lot, so you don't get the information about what he's bluffing with, or if he is bluffing at all. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. So this is Katipo, and the end of the video for now.